Here we want to find z times w and z over w. So remember, these are the polar form of a complex number. So we have two complex numbers here, right? We have 3 times cosine 130 degrees plus I sine 130 degrees. And w, which equals 4 times cosine of 50 degrees plus I sine of 50 degrees. Okay, so we want to multiply these together and divide these together. Right, so there is a special formula for this, right? Now, this is just the way that I'm going to write these because there's two numbers here, right? So we have R1. Okay, so we call it R1 because this is just the first point, right? Cosine of theta 1 plus I sine of theta 1. And then in this case, we have W, right? So W is just a second point, so I'm just going to use a subscript of 2 for these guys, right? Cosine of theta 2 plus I sine of theta 2. Remember, these are different values, okay? Now, just by chance, it's possible that they're the same, but the reason why this one has a subscript of 1 and this one has a subscript of 2 is because they are different values. So, what is the formula then? What happens when we multiply these together, z times w, okay? Then what happens is we multiply R1 times R2 together, and then we need to add the angles together. So theta 1 plus theta 2, right? The cosine of whatever that is, plus I sine, and similarly, we want to add the angles together. When we divide, what happens? Okay, so when we divide these guys, z divided by w, we divide the respective, okay, r. Now the order is important here, right? So we're doing z divided by w, right? Not w divided by z. So make sure you remember that. And for the angles, similarly, we subtract them. And the order is important, right? Theta 1 minus theta 2. And then I sine. And once again, theta 1 minus theta 2. All right, so let's do this one, right? So we have these different values. What happens when we multiply them together? Well, we just multiply 3 times 4, which is 12. And what happens to the angles? Right, we need to add 130 plus 50. In this case, notice we get 180 degrees, right? So cosine of 180 degrees plus I sine of 180 degrees. Okay. What about when we divide them? Z divided by W. Now, this was a little bit more trickier because of the order, right? We want to take Z divided by W. So in this case, 3 over 4. And what happens to the angle? Z divided by W, so we take the 130 minus 50, that becomes the cosine of 80 degrees plus the I sine of 80 degrees. Right, just to note that whenever we multiply two complex numbers or divide them, we actually just get another complex number, right? So this is the result, right? This is what happens when we get Z times W, and this is what happens when we get Z divided by W.